So what makes me cranky about Cars 3? All the existential questions that come along with this whole Cars universe. Why is the Cars world essentially just our world, but with cars taking the place of people? Was it a human world and all the humans were turned into cars? Are there other sentient beings in this universe besides the various vehicles? How do they build things that clearly require more dexterity than the tips of a forklift, like cameras and televisions and such? Or even replace parts of themselves that would normally require a human squeezing their hand into a tight space? And on down the rabbit hole we go. But unlike the first two movies, where you can kind of brush that aside and just go along with it, this movie hinges upon questions that are never answered. In this movie, you have new up-and-coming racers that are faster and better designed than Lightning McQueen, so they are eating his lunch on the racetrack. Where do the new cars come from? Did two cars have to have car sex to make a new car? How would the cars have sex anyway? Would it be like some kind of demolition derby where they just smash into each other over and over and over again until enough parts splinter off to make a new car? And if they're car offspring as opposed to human built for a specific purpose, why are they specially designed to be better race cars? And if they're faster because they're better designed, why can't McQueen just be modified to keep up? The bodies of the cars appear to be merely cosmetic in nature, so surely Lightning could at least make his body more aerodynamic. Can we swap out his engine too? Or is the engine more like the soul of the car? So changing it would effectively make the car a different person? Because if we can modify McQueen to be like the new cars, as one would assume we could, then McQueen should theoretically be able to get close to, if not as fast as the newbies, and there's no problem here. The same could have been said if they just went with McQueen slowly breaking down as he ages, since they could just replace the defective parts. But the movie seems to be saying, well, he's just old, like a human would be old, and therefore he can't be as fast. Except that he's not really any slower than he was. He's just not as fast as the new cars are. So he spends the first half of the movie trying to figure out how to train himself to be faster, which itself makes no sense since I can't train my Camaro to be faster than my dad's Corvette. All of that confusion about how the cars actually work could be avoided if they just stuck to the actual story they're telling here, instead of wasting our time with this tedious bit of misdirection that ultimately turns all of the great trailers for this movie into a full-on bait and switch. Based on the trailers and the first 20 minutes or so, you'd think you're in for essentially the Cars version of Rocky III, where the complacent champion suddenly receives a beatdown from a younger, hungrier opponent, and to regain his throne, the champ has to learn a new way to fight and rediscover the eye of the tiger that got him to the top in the first place. But what you're actually in for is a story about McQueen coming to terms with being old and a new generation taking over. That makes the first half of the movie not only boring, but also a total waste of time. And since they have to rush through it in order to get to the other movie they're making, things like the big crash highlighted in the first teaser trailer have little to no weight. They just happen and we move on as quickly as possible. Even the kids in my theater had lost interest about halfway through. Now, once the movie gets on with the real story, which centers on this new little sports car called Cruise, it does pick up considerably. Unfortunately, I didn't care about Cruise at all because she spends most of her introduction being annoying as possible in order to further that Rocky III stuff along. Plus, her entire character arc once again runs afoul of all those questions about whether or not the cars have the limitations of cars or if they're just quasi-human things that run on willpower as much as they run on gasoline. Many of the moments involving her character that should be very poignant fell completely flat for me as they forced me to go back to trying to figure out how this universe actually works. Now, despite all of those things, it's not a bad movie per se. It's definitely not as dumb or as boring as the last Cars movie, but I don't think it's better than the first one either, and certainly not in the same league as many of the other Pixar films. As I said, some of the kids had trouble staying entertained for the full run, so you may want to save your money on this one and just wait until they can watch it at home where they won't be bothering other moviegoers by jumping around in their seats and talking the whole time. And for the rest of you, a matinee wouldn't be out of the question. That's what I thought about Cars 3 anyway. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And it's never too early to get in on the cheering section for a rookie YouTube channel, so feel free to hit that like button and subscribe for more reviews just like this one.